I stared at my phone, the email notification glowing accusingly in the dim hallway of my Vancouver office building. It was 6:43 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I'd just wrapped a 16-hour day that had actually started at 2:43 a.m. for a call with our Tokyo partners. My thumb hovered over the message from my older sister, Jessica. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about the baby shower." I knew what was coming. I'd felt it building for weeks, ever since Jessica announced her pregnancy 4 months ago. The subtle comments, the redirected conversations, the way Mom would change the subject whenever I mentioned my work. I opened the email. "Hey Sarah, I've been thinking a lot about the guest list for the shower, and David and I have decided to keep it really intimate, just close family and our Vancouver social circle. I know you're super busy with your teaching job anyway, and honestly, I don't want you to feel pressured to bring an expensive gift when I know teacher salaries are tight. Mom and Dad agree it's probably better this way. Hope you understand. Love you. XOXO, Jess." I read it 3 times. Each time, a different phrase stabbed deeper. Teacher salaries are tight. Don't want you to feel pressured. Mom and Dad agree. My colleague, Marcus, appeared beside me. "Everything okay, Sarah?" I locked my phone. "Yeah, just family stuff. You heading home? We've got the TechCrunch Disrupt keynote prep tomorrow at 9. "I know. I'll be there." Marcus studied my face. He was one of maybe 5 people in my life who knew what I actually did for a living. "Your family still doesn't know, do they?" "Know what?" I said, though we both knew exactly what he meant. "That you're not actually a teacher." I shrugged. I teach. I taught coding workshops at the community center for 3 years. It's not technically a lie. "Sarah, you're the founder and CEO of EdVenture Learning. You've built a company valued at $1.8 billion. You've revolutionized how 2 million students across North America learn mathematics and science. You're speaking at one of the biggest tech conferences in the world in 3 days. That's slightly different from teaching weekend coding classes. My family doesn't need to know all that." "Why not?" I thought about how to explain it. How when I started EdVenture 6 years ago, fresh out of UBC with my computer science degree, I'd told my parents I was doing some teaching and tutoring. How when the company started growing, I'd kept it vague, working in education technology. How when we hit our first million in revenue, I'd simply said, "The tutoring thing is going well." I'd wanted them to love me for who I was, not what I'd achieved. I'd wanted to be Sarah, their daughter, not Sarah Chen, the edtech entrepreneur featured in Forbes and TechCrunch. But somewhere along the way, their perception had solidified. I became Sarah, the teacher. And in my family, that meant Sarah the failure. Jessica was a corporate lawyer at one of Vancouver's top firms. She'd married David, an investment banker at Goldman Sachs. They had a penthouse in Cole Harbor, drove matching Tesla Model S cars, and sent Christmas cards with professional photos where they wore matching cream-colored sweaters. Me? I lived in a modest apartment in Kitsilano, drove a 2019 Honda Civic, and spent most of my time in hoodies and jeans. I looked exactly like what my family thought I was, a struggling teacher scraping by in one of Canada's most expensive cities. "Maybe it's better this way," I told Marcus, pocketing my phone. "Less complicated." Marcus shook his head. "Or maybe it's just sad. See you tomorrow, Sarah." I walked home through the rainy Vancouver streets, my mind replaying every family dinner over the past 5 years. Every comment, every subtle dismissal. "Still teaching, Sarah? When are you going to get a real career? Have you thought about law school? It's not too late. You're only 29. Jessica's making partner next year. We're so proud. David got another promotion." "Did we tell you?" "What do you mean? You can't make it to our anniversary party? Don't teachers finish work at 3? I let myself into my apartment and stood in the darkness for a moment. Through the window, I could see the lights of downtown Vancouver, the harbor beyond. Somewhere in one of those glass towers, Jessica and David were probably having wine on their balcony, discussing their baby shower, relieved they wouldn't have to deal with their poor, unsuccessful sister. My phone buzzed. "Mom. Jessica told me about the shower situation. I think it's for the best, sweetie. You don't need to waste your money on expensive baby gifts." Maybe just send a card? I typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, "Sure, Mom. Whatever works." The next morning, I was back in the office by 7 a.m., running through my TechCrunch presentation with our communications team. The keynote was titled Democratizing Education: How AI is Closing the Achievement Gap. I'd be speaking to 15,000 attendees and countless thousands more watching the live stream. "Your energy's off," Priya, our head of communications, observed. "What's going on?" I told her about the email. About the baby shower. About being uninvited from my own niece or nephew's celebration because my family thought I was too poor to afford an appropriate gift. Priya's eyes widened. "Your sister doesn't know? Your parents don't know?" "No one knows. Except the people here, my lawyer, my accountant, and Marcus. Sarah, honey, Adventure Learning was just acquired by Google for $1.8 billion. The deal closes in 3 weeks. You're about to be one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in Canadian history. Your family thinks you can't afford a baby gift?" When she put it that way, it did sound absurd. "I've kept it separate for a reason," I said. "I wanted to know if they could love me without the success, without the money, without the prestige. And now I have my answer." Priya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know what? Screw them. Let's make this TechCrunch keynote absolutely perfect. Show the world who Sarah Chen really is, even if your family refuses to see it." The next 2 days blurred together in a haze of preparation. I barely thought about Jessica or the baby shower, or my mother's pitying text messages. I was too focused on my presentation, on the future of Adventure under Google's ownership, on the 2 million students whose lives we'd changed. On Friday morning, the day before my TechCrunch keynote, I got a call from an unknown Toronto number. "Is this Sarah Chen?" A man's voice, uncertain. "Speaking. This is David Morrison. Your brother-in-law?" I stopped walking. I was in the middle of the Vancouver Convention Center, where TechCrunch Disrupt was being set up. Around me, tech companies were assembling elaborate booth displays. "David? Is everything okay? Is Jessica? Jessica's fine. The baby's fine. I need to ask you something, and I feel really stupid for not knowing the answer." He paused. "Are you Sarah Chen from Adventure Learning?" My heart stopped. My boss mentioned that Sarah Chen is keynoting tomorrow. He's obsessed with Adventure, his kids use the platform. He was going on and on about how she's revolutionizing education, how Google just acquired the company for almost $2 billion. And I thought, what a coincidence, same name as my sister-in-law. So I Googled you. I said nothing. Sarah? The photos. The articles. Forbes 30 Under 30. TechCrunch profiles. The announcement about the Google acquisition. That's you. That's all you? Yes. But you're a teacher. You teach at a community center. You told us you make, like, $40,000 a year. I said I worked in education. I never specified how much I made. Sarah. His voice was strained. Your company was acquired for $1.8 billion. The articles say you own 63%. That's over $1 billion. You're a billionaire. You're sitting on stage tomorrow with the Prime Minister and Satya Nadella, and my wife uninvited you from her baby shower because she thought you were too poor to afford a nice gift. I know. Why didn't you tell us? That was the question, wasn't it? Why hadn't I told them? Because 6 years ago, when Adventure was just an idea, I'd shared it at a family dinner. Jessica had laughed. An app to teach kids math? Sarah, there are thousands of those. You're wasting your degree. Get a real job. Because 4 years ago, when we'd secured our Series A funding, I'd mentioned we'd raised money. Dad had said, "That's nice, sweetie, but when are you going to settle down? Find a husband? You're 25. Jessica was married by then. Because 2 years ago, when Forbes featured me in their 30 Under 30 list, I'd tried to show Mom the article. She'd glanced at it and said, "That's wonderful, dear, but did you hear Jessica's making partner?" Because I'd learned that in my family, my achievements would always be background noise to Jessica's conventional success. So, I'd stop trying. I'd let them think I was exactly what they'd assumed. A struggling teacher. Unmarried. Unsuccessful. Slightly pitiful. I didn't tell you because no one asked, I said finally. No one wanted to know. They just wanted to assume. David was quiet. I could hear him breathing, processing. Jessica doesn't know, does she? No. Sarah, the baby shower is tomorrow. Same day as your keynote. She's invited 50 people. Mom and Dad are flying in from Kelowna. Everyone's been asking about you, and Jessica's been saying you couldn't make it because you had to teach or something. I don't know what to do with this information. You don't have to do anything, David. Enjoy the shower. Celebrate your baby. Congratulations, by the way. I genuinely mean that. Sarah, I have a keynote to prepare for. Give Jessica my love. I hung up before he could respond. The next morning, I stood backstage at the Vancouver Convention Center, listening to the roar of 15,000 people taking their seats. My hands were steady as I adjusted my microphone. I'd chosen a simple black blazer, white blouse, dark jeans, my uniform. Professional but approachable. CEO, but still myself. Priya appeared beside me. You ready? Yes. Your family? Having a baby shower across town? Perfect timing, really. I won't be tempted to check my phone. She squeezed my hand. Go show them who you are. The MC's voice boomed across the convention center. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce the founder and CEO of Adventure Learning, recently acquired by Google for $1.8 billion. She's been named to Forbes 30 Under 30, MIT Technology Review's Innovators, Under 35, and has revolutionized digital education for over 2 million students across North America. Please welcome Sarah Chen. The applause was thunderous as I walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding, but I could feel the energy of the crowd. I could see the massive screens displaying my face, the Adventure logo, the statistics about our impact. I launched into my presentation, and everything else fell away. I talked about the 8-year-old in rural Saskatchewan who'd gone from failing math to winning her school science fair, the immigrant family in Toronto whose kids had used Adventure to accelerate their English learning, the teacher in Halifax who'd told us our adaptive AI had helped her reach students she'd previously thought were unreachable. I talked about the future of education, about accessibility, about the moral imperative to ensure every child, regardless of their postal code or their parents' income, had access to world-class learning tools. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. I fielded questions from the audience, posed for photos with other speakers, and gave back-to-back interviews with TechCrunch, Bloomberg, and CBC. It wasn't until 4 p.m., when I finally had a moment to check my phone, that I saw the messages. 17 missed calls from David, 12 from Jessica, 9 from Mom, 5 from Dad, and 1 text from David, sent at 11:30 a.m. Sarah, I'm so sorry. Jessica saw the TechCrunch live stream. Someone at the shower brought it up. I think you need to call her. I didn't call. Instead, I went to the after party, networked with investors and founders, and celebrated Adventure's journey with my team. It wasn't until I got home at midnight that I finally listened to the voicemails. Jessica's first message, 11:47 a.m. Sarah, I just saw you on TechCrunch. What the actual hell? Call me back right now. Jessica's second message, 12:15 p.m. Sarah, everyone at my baby shower is asking about you. They're all watching the live stream. Mom is freaking out. Why didn't you tell us? Why would you hide this? Mom's message, 12:33 p.m. Sarah Chen, I cannot believe what I'm seeing on television. Your father and I are absolutely mortified. Everyone is asking why we didn't mention you were so successful. Call me immediately. David's message, 1:02 p.m. Sarah, this is David. The shower it's a disaster. Half the guests are watching you instead of celebrating with us. Jessica's in the bathroom crying. Your mom is making excuses to people about why they didn't know. I feel like an absolute idiot. Please call us back. We need to talk. Jessica's final message, 2:47 p.m. Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was horrible to you. I didn't know. I should have asked. I should have cared enough to ask. Please talk to me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain against my window. Part of me felt vindicated. They knew now. They couldn't dismiss me anymore. I wasn't Sarah, the struggling teacher. I was Sarah Chen, billionaire entrepreneur, keynote speaker, Forbes 30 under 30. But another part of me just felt tired and sad. Because even now, even with all this success, what I really wanted was for them to have loved me when I was nobody, when I was just Sarah, teaching coding to kids on weekends, building something I believed in. The doorbell rang at 1 a.m. I checked the camera. Jessica stood in the rain, mascara streaked, still wearing her baby shower dress, a flowing floral thing that showcased her bump. I opened the door. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I watched your entire keynote. I saw what you've built, what you've accomplished, and all I could think about was every terrible thing I've ever said to you. Every time I made you feel small. Every time I acted like your work didn't matter because it wasn't what I understood as success." "Come inside," I said quietly. "You're getting soaked." She stepped into my modest apartment, the one she'd visited exactly twice in 5 years, both times with thinly veiled judgment about my simple lifestyle. Now she looked around with new eyes. "You could afford so much more than this," she said. "I like it here. It's close to the office, close to the ocean. It's enough." "But why, Sarah? Why hide it? Why let us think?" Her voice broke. "Why let us treat you like you were less than us?" I handed her a towel. "Sit down, Jess." We sat on my couch, the same couch she'd once suggested I upgrade because it looks like it came from IKEA. It had. I liked it. 6 years ago, I started. I tried to tell you about Adventure. You laughed. You said I was wasting my degree. Do you remember? She flushed. "Sarah, 4 years ago, I mentioned we'd raised funding. Dad asked when I was going to find a husband. 2 years ago, I showed Mom the Forbes article. She changed the subject to your partnership track. I looked at her. I learned that in this family, my accomplishments would always be background noise to yours. So I stopped sharing. I kept my work separate. I wanted to know if you could love me just as Sarah. Not Sarah the successful entrepreneur, not Sarah the billionaire, just me." "And we failed," Jessica whispered. "We completely failed you. Yes, I uninvited you from my baby shower because I thought you were poor. I pitied you. I felt embarrassed by you." Tears streamed down her face. "Sarah, you're my little sister. I'm supposed to be proud of you. I'm supposed to celebrate you. Instead, I made you feel like you had to hide who you were just to be accepted." I didn't say anything. What could I say? She was right. "David feels like an idiot," she continued. "He's been bragging about Adventure to his colleagues for months without realizing his sister-in-law founded it. Mom and Dad are mortified. At the shower, everyone kept asking why they'd never mentioned their daughter was so successful. Mom made up some excuse about you being private, but everyone could see through it. We didn't know because we never bothered to ask." "No," I agreed. "You never did. How do I fix this? How do we fix this?" I looked at my sister, her baby bump prominent under her dress, her face blotchy from crying. I thought about the niece or nephew she was carrying, about the family we were, and the family we could have been. "I don't know if you can fix it, Jess. The damage is done. You've shown me who you are when you think I'm struggling, when you think I'm unsuccessful, and that's going to stay with me. I know, and I hate myself for it. But," I continued, "I'm willing to try, not for you, for that baby, because they deserve an aunt who's present, who's honest, and maybe, eventually, we can rebuild something. But it's going to take time. And it's going to require you to see me, really see me, not just my bank account or my company or my achievements, just me." "Sarah," Jessica nodded, wiping her eyes. "I can do that. I want to do that. Then start now. Tell me about the shower, about the baby, about what you're hoping for." And she did. We talked until 3 a.m., the longest real conversation we'd had in years. When she left, I felt something shift, not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the possibility of it. Over the next 3 weeks, my family tried. Mom and Dad drove down from Kelowna to take me to dinner. They apologized, fumbling through explanations about how they'd been traditional and hadn't understood modern careers and should have been more supportive. Jessica called every few days. Sometimes we talked about the baby, sometimes about her work. Slowly, carefully, she started asking about mine. Really asking, not just polite questions, but genuine curiosity about adventure, about the acquisition, about what came next. David sent me a long email, apologizing for his role in my exclusion. He admitted he'd sometimes joined in Jessica's jokes about my teaching hobby and felt ashamed that he'd been following Adventure's success without connecting it to me. The baby shower gift I'd originally planned, a modest $200 registry item, got upgraded. I made a $50,000 donation to Vancouver's Children's Education Fund in the baby's name. When Jessica opened the card at a belated family dinner, she cried. The card read, "For Baby Morrison. May you grow up in a family that celebrates all kinds of success, asks instead of assumes, and loves people for who they are, not what they achieve. With all my love, Aunt Sarah, founder of Adventure Learning." At that dinner, Dad raised his glass. I want to propose a toast. To Sarah, who achieved incredible things while we were too blind to notice. We're sorry we weren't there for your journey, but we're here now, and we're so proud of you. I raised my glass, but my eyes met Jessica's. She mouthed, "I'm sorry." I nodded. Not it's okay, because it wasn't, not completely, but I see you trying. And that was a start. The Google acquisition closed in early March. The local news covered it extensively. CBC did a feature on me, on Adventure's impact, on what it meant for Vancouver's tech scene. My parents watched every interview, read every article, sent me proud texts that made me simultaneously happy and sad. Happy they were finally proud. Sad it had taken public validation for them to see my worth. Jessica went into labor in late April. I was in the delivery room. David had asked me to be there, and Jessica had agreed. When my niece, Emma, was born, tiny and perfect and screaming, Jessica looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Promise me," she said, exhausted and emotional. "Promise me you'll be the aunt who sees her, really sees her, no matter what she becomes, teacher or CEO or anything in between." "I promise," I said, holding Emma's tiny hand. "I'll see her exactly as she is, because that's what family should do. See each other. Really see each other. Not for achievements or titles or bank accounts, but for the people we are. The struggles we face. The dreams we chase. The quiet victories no one applauds because they're not public enough, successful enough, conventional enough. I'd built a billion-dollar company, spoken on international stages, changed millions of lives through education. But the hardest thing I'd ever done was show up at family dinners after being dismissed for years, choosing forgiveness over resentment, giving them a chance to do better. Some days, I still felt the sting of those years of dismissal. Some days, I wanted to remind them of every slight, every casual cruelty, every moment they'd made me feel small. But mostly, I looked at Emma and thought about the family she'd grow up in, one where her Aunt Sarah was honest about her work, where her mother was learning to ask instead of assume, where her grandparents were trying, however imperfectly, to value people for who they were, not just what they accomplished. It wasn't perfect. We weren't perfect, but we were trying, and sometimes that's all you can ask for. I kept my modest apartment in Kitsilano. I kept driving my Honda Civic. I kept wearing hoodies to the office. Because success, I'd learned, wasn't about the external markers everyone could see. It was about building something meaningful, staying true to yourself, and surrounding yourself with people who loved you at your lowest, not just celebrated you at your highest. And if there's one thing I want people to take from my story, it's this. Your worth isn't determined by your job title, your bank account, or your family's perception of success. You define your own worth. You decide what matters. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is be authentically yourself in a world that's constantly telling you to be something else. Whether you're a teacher, a tech founder, a stay-at-home parent, an artist, or anything in between, your value doesn't come from external validation. It comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and having the courage to pursue your path even when others don't understand it. My family learned that lesson the hard way. I hope others won't have to.